I've had numerous 5-figure days in the Forex markets, so I'm quite experienced in this field. And I'm going to give you a little insight into what it's actually like making over 10K per day in the markets and how you can prepare yourself for that time that it actually comes. And when you get to that stage where you are able to make 5 figures in a single day of trading, I'd say once you get to a point where you're able to make 4 figures in a single trading day, so $1,000 plus, this is when things really start to change, because you can then put it into perspective with previous employment that you've actually had. In my case, this was amplified because I started trading when I was 16 years old. So at that time in the UK, when I worked a restaurant job for, I think, a month before I was eventually fired, but I was being paid £5 per hour. So then when I made my first £1,000 in a single day of trading, so I quickly did the maths in my head, 1,000 divided by 5, I would have had to work 200 hours to make this money. And then you think, okay, how many hours are in a day? 24. So let's just round up to 25. So 25, okay. So I would have had to work 8 days straight with no rest, no sleep, of actual physical work to make this £1,000. Now, it actually seems like a lot of money. But when you actually see it first on the screen in trading, you're so desensitized because you haven't had to put in the hours to technically make that trade, to actually make that money. The only real work you've had to put in is the years of development beforehand. So it kind of feels like you're making money within an hour. So let's say you make £1,000 in an hour, it feels like you've only worked for an hour. But you have to put it into perspective that, okay, all these hours built up that I didn't get paid when I was backtesting, when I was journaling, when I was trying to figure out my trading plan, developing my edge, that is when you're actually working. And when you're doing that, you're not getting paid because no money's going into your bank. And then once you see numbers on a screen, okay, £1,000, I just made that in an hour's trading, that then seems quite crazy. But you soon become desensitized to these numbers on your screen. I can show you right now the profits made on one of my accounts last week. And if I just show you on the MetaTrader 4, £4,000 or $4,000, I think it is, $3,900 last week. And that might seem like a lot of money, but you realize it's just numbers on a screen. So it doesn't really matter at all. And you guys probably know that I live quite a frugal lifestyle. I wouldn't say I'm flashy at all. I spend money on certain things. Like, to put it into perspective, this watch here is $15,000 or just shy of $15,000, which is what I bought it for. And if I compared that to the working hours of when I was working in that restaurant, it would be quite a crazy number that I would actually come up with. But then once you actually spend that money, once you actually make money from trading, everything else in the world seems cheap. And it sounds crazy, but only traders who make 6 figures plus or 7 figures plus will understand this. And that's what I'm trying to get across to you guys. Let's say you make £1,000 today trading, and then someone says, oh, energy's gone up £5 per month or £5 per year. You just don't really care. Like, it doesn't matter to you in the slightest. And let's say you buy lunch and you don't look at the price, obviously, because you're a trader. It just doesn't matter. You know, if that lunch costs £50, if that lunch costs £25, it just does not matter because you're able to make £1,000 from your phone. It feels like you're not working. Like that money I made last week, it doesn't feel like I've worked a single hour, which means that once you go from that £1,000 in a day to that £10,000 in a day, again, it doesn't feel any different. All you kind of feel is elation because you know that you now have £10,000 more. The main things that I kind of think about when I'm in profit, let's say 10K plus, and obviously I've had days where it's been 20K, 25K, 35K, 55K. And obviously that's when you start to feel it, when it's like, okay, I've just made a yearly salary. I've made a yearly salary in 4 hours. That's when it can be like, oh, every single time I do this, I've basically added a year of free living, or I've reduced my retirement by a year. That's kind of the way I look at it. Every time I have one of these big trades, okay, I can now retire a year earlier. And I feel like that's a good way to look at it, rather than the other kind of lens that you can look through that says, okay, this is what I can now spend this money on. There are kind of two different people in the trading scene. I've made 50K. How can I spend this 50K now? versus the people, that have a long-term view like myself. I would like to say, okay, the 50K, how can I invest this 50K? How can I keep this 50K? And how can I make it benefit my life in the long term? Because I know as a trader, I don't want to be trading in 20 years time, sat at the charts, trying to, analyze the charts in 20 years. I just don't want to be doing that. So if I can future-proof my investments and future-proof my portfolios, then it will set me up for an early retirement, which is obviously what I want. But we're going off on a little side tangent there, which you probably aren't interested in. But back to the point. Scaling up your account is a lot easier said than done. I said that you don't really feel the difference between 1,000 and 10,000, but the main differences are when it's small increases. So your first £5 day, it sounds small, but £5 day is completely normal for a beginner trader. And then you go to 50 pounds in a day. That's a 10x increase. That's exactly the same as going from £1,000 to £10,000. The exact same increase. But it seems like a bigger increase because it's a lot more money. But in reality, you're actually increasing your wins by the exact same percentage. So that's why I feel like it doesn't make that much of a difference if you've already done it before in the past. You've gone to get to £1,000 in a day, let alone 10K. You've gone from 5 to 50. Then you've gone from 50 to 100. That's another, 100% increase. So now you've gone from 5 to 50 to 100. Then you have to go to 250 or 500, then 750. Obviously, these are just round numbers, but you're going to work your way up slowly as your account size grows. Now you get to 1,000. So from 5 to 1,000, you've already gone up 200x. And at this point, it doesn't seem that drastic because it's been slow. It probably has been slow. And you probably use your personal account to work your way up to get to the prop firm stage. And then you're able to make, $1,000, £1,000 from prop firms. And then you get to 10K. Okay, so another 2x, another 100% increase. Great. Then you go to 20K. Okay, another 100%, another 2x. You see what I'm getting at here? Because everything's gradual, you're not going from $50 in a day to 50K in a day. That just is not possible. You're working your way up slowly. So I see a lot of people say, if I can manage $5, I can manage $50,000. I don't think that's true because you have to work your way up. I've never seen someone that's been trading a $200 account that's suddenly able to manage $200,000. The money is going to affect them. Seeing the profits fluctuate is definitely going to get to them, and they might make emotional decisions that they wouldn't normally make. And this is completely expected from a trader. I wouldn't expect someone to be able to manage $200,000, let alone $2 million, if they've only managed $200 in the past. So the way to actually get to this level is very, very simple. People probably think I'm going to give you a complicated plan, but that is not the case. I'm going to give you a simple outline on how to actually achieve this. Firstly, start small and work your way up. I have uploaded a video on my channel, how to start with $500, so be sure to check that out. You don't want to miss it. And that's how I'd say to start from $500, so be sure to watch that video. And once you have started small, you're going to increase gradually. And once you do increase gradually, it's going to be the new normal. As a child, you're used to earning £5 an hour if you do have a job under the age of 18, for example. Then you get to 18, you're then working at minimum wage, and then your wages increased. So now you're used to earning this amount. Then you get a promotion. Okay, now I'm used to earning this amount. You turn 21. I'm pretty sure minimum wage increases at 21. Not entirely sure. But then you're earning slightly more. And as you see, you quite quickly get used to that. And if you are someone that isn't very good in money, you will let this lifestyle inflation affect you. And you will start spending more money. But it doesn't really seem that drastic going up 5K a year in a salary. So why would it seem that drastic going up on your account size and a trading account, or your profits going up? Obviously, it is quite a big jump, going from $5 to $50 to $10,000, but it is kind of the same concept. Just because it's split over a day's work rather than a year of work, it does obviously seem a lot more substantial. But that's kind of the way I see it. Other aspects of our lives increase in that manner. It doesn't seem to affect people as much as it does with trading profits. And, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not entirely sure why that is. But I do feel like because you don't feel like you've earned it, a lot of traders do anyway. Because you're only doing, a few hours of work, less than a few hours of work. If I enter a trade this morning, 2 clicks, I'm in that trade. That trade can make $10,000. That trade today made $6,000. You got to think of it. How long did it actually take me to earn $6,000? Not very long. And you have to get used to that. And then you have so much free time to do whatever you want, which is the true beauty of trading. So be sure to check out this video. YouTube thinks you'll like it. And yeah, be sure to watch it. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you guys in the next video if you come back for more.